So here's something that I mean, I don't even understand the answer, but I'm going to pass on to something you said just a couple days ago, and this is on your Twitter account. You said, some guy gave up his first-class seat for a uniformed soldier. People are thanking him. I'm trying not to vomit or yell about Mosul. Was that satire, too? What does that mean? Or are you going to blame Steve Bannon for that as well?
I think it's really irresponsible to blindly support, for example, wars that send off young people into combat, risk their lives, kill many others, as we've just seen in Mosul, 200 people incinerated by U.S. bombs, and to not do that in a way that expands anyone's freedom, that makes anyone less secure. The Iraq War
but
has
you're
not
blaming
freedom.
The soldier. You're not blaming the policymakers. You're saying You're saying giving up a seat for a soldier in uniform made you want to vomit. You're not saying giving up a seat for the guy who made the war policy, but for the soldier, the guy who's risking his life. Why'd that make you feel like throwing up?
I think U.S. troops need real support. They don't need symbolic gestures. What they need is not a first-class seat. What they need is health care support, psychological support. Women in uniform need to not be subjected to an epidemic of sexual assault. And more than anything, they don't need to be deployed, have their lives risked, be taken away from their families for wars that do nothing and no good for anyone.
But why is it bad to get, okay, that's fine, but why is it bad to give him a first-class seat? I'm missing that. Someone's trying to be nice to the guy who's going through all these hardships you just described, and that makes you mad. Why?
I'm all for generous gestures devoted toward those who most deserve them in our society, and I have the deepest respect for anyone who, particularly for economic reasons, makes difficult decisions, whether it's joining the military, whether it's, doing other dangerous work that has to take place in our society, whether it's being an economic migrant. And I think these people all deserve better. They deserve to not have to join the military if they would rather just get an education.
But he did. He doesn't have a government-subsidized job at a university like you. So why that make you mad?
To not have the health care and the psychological support that they need. This is how we support the troops, not by sending them off into wars.
Okay. So you began this conversation with reference to your own scholarship and the academic journals that you and your fellow professors publish in. And because I do want to take you seriously, I actually spent some time reading some of them today. And I want you to explain to me what this means. Now, I was an editor for a long time, not an academic press, but an editor. You wrote a piece called Dual Power in the Venezuelan Revolution. This is the second paragraph, and I'm quoting it. By viewing the process through the Leninist concept of dual power, that is the construction of an autonomous alternative power capable of challenging the existing state structure, we can see that the establishment of communal councils in Venezuela is clearly a positive step toward the development of fuller and deeper democracy, which is encouraging in and of itself. Now, that's a sentence with too many adjectives, a passive construction, imprecise language. It's high school writing. It's crap. And I'm wondering, is your scholarship serious?
I really appreciate you digging into the vault. I appreciate you digging into the vault to actually closely read some of my
You're not an impressive scholar.
Really
that's what I'm saying. You're a performance artist. That's not impressive.
That's shown himself unable to use Google today. This is really interesting. I've got 3 books
What does that mean? I just read.
I don't need to flout academic credentials in front of you.
But you're not capable of writing a clear sentence. Now, I went through a lot of different essays that you wrote, and I've got an IQ above room temperature, and I couldn't understand any of them because your writing is childlike. It's childlike. And I'm wondering,
as though your entire
can you explain what that
means?
You're
incapable of grasping very simple and very basic things.
Okay,
I've done
so what is
studies on popular power in Venezuela, on the development of what are called communal councils. I know them better than most, and I know what it means to develop these participatory institutions of democracy in Venezuela. I'm glad to talk about them. But if your entire shtick is to come on here and say that you can't understand basic English and basic sentences, I'm really not sure where to start.
But it's not basic English. I've spent a lot of time writing and editing basic English, and it's designed to make the idea clearer, not to cloak them from people. So 2 things are going on. Either you don't really know what you're saying because you don't understand it yourself, or you're trying to hide it from the person for whom you're writing. And neither one is impressive. And I guess my point is, the only writing I have read by you that I can understand clearly are your tweets. And they seem to be designed to shock people, to get attention. It seems, again, a species of performance art, not scholarship. Has this occurred to you?
I mean, performance art is scholarship. Let's be real about that. But you seem to be able to understand the very short pieces that I write, and yet when you sit down to try to read the longer things, you suddenly want to perform your own inability to actually read and to digest. Plenty of people have read my work, they appreciate it, and yet you're here defending someone like Charles Murray, who very few people defend, who is a
I'm not defending Charles Murray. I'm defending. I'm defending.
About them. We're here talking about.
I'm defending his right to say what he thinks, and I think that underpins all scholarship. Is the right of people to say what they believe. We call it free speech. It's enshrined in the Bill of Rights, in the First Amendment to that bill. So I'm just surprised that you're not for that. But then I guess I shouldn't be, because you defend Hugo Chavez. But let me just ask you one final question. If your tweet...
Now, at no point in the First Amendment does it say that no one should use their free speech to protest. And I think you know that perfectly well.
No, but it's not a question of protesting.
At no point does it say that free speech should not be loud, it should not be disruptive, it should not be unruly. These are things that have a long and venerated tradition in the United States.
And I'm not against protest, as you know.
Free speech is very different.
Professor. You're trying to prevent a man...
to an academic platform.
Silly. You're trying to prevent him from saying what he thinks.
Right-wing think tanks.
Okay. Last question. The tweet that you're unwilling to defend about feeling nauseous as you see a man in uniform getting a first-class seat, you protected that. You prevented the public from seeing that right after you tweeted it. If you're proud of what you think and you can defend what you think, why did you do that?
I believe absolutely in the right of people to use these platforms. I believe in the right of Charles Murray, of course, to take to Twitter and to say, you know, to spew his kind of violent racism. But that doesn't mean that he should be invited onto a university campus to do so.
I'm sorry. I don't have a lot of time. I just want you to answer my question.
Those people that he says are inferior, those people that he says are inferior have every right to protest to him, to take to the streets, to demand that he not be able to speak.
But you're not answering my question.
As human beings.
You're going on
racism, inferior.
Okay.
Yes.
I got it.
It's racism.
Are you going to answer my question?
If you don't want to recognize Charles Murray as a racist,
why are you protecting your Twitter feed
if
you can defend your position? Why are you hiding it from the public?
Sometimes you need to protect your Twitter feed when people who like to go on and on about free speech decide that it's time to violently threaten people who are using that free speech. I would not violently threaten a Charles Murray despite him being a racist. And yet,
you didn't major in irony, I can see, Professor.
Right to go speak at Villanova.
I gotta go.
Absolutely absurd.
Thanks for joining us tonight. Have fun in Mexico City.
Agnus redemitoves, Christus innocens patri, reconciliavit peccatores.
All right, let's get some live reaction from Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who's on the front lines of the immigration debate. Good evening. Thanks for joining us, sir.
Hey, Happy New Year. Glad to be on.
All right. I wonder what you believe are the prospects for actually getting the kind of deal that Lauren laid out. The president, it seems like he's sticking to his guns and saying, look, if you want a deal on DACA, you've got to start building this wall.
Look, I've been hopeful about this since he was elected. He's done more with immigration reform and border security than any president in my lifetime. I'm certainly hopeful that this is something that could be worked out. Given that the Democrats want DACA reform and the president wants his wall, I don't see any reason why we can't get a deal done.
But you know, Democrats have been resisting his agenda from day one. We've seen, in fact, one of the accomplishments that doesn't get a lot of attention that you know better than any of us do along your southern border, the fact that a lot less people are getting across that border illegally because of some of the measures the president's already taken. So what kind of public case needs to be made by he and others in order to get a deal that you make sure the Democrats don't have the upper hand and just get their side of it and you don't actually get the wall?
Look, I think just telling the truth about what Texas has dealt with over the last 5 or 6 years with all kinds of crimes that have been committed. We've documented over 600,000 crimes committed by illegals, including 1,200 homicides and other horrific crimes. We also have the example of what happened on the border in El Paso, where El Paso used to be one of the highest crime cities in our state. And now because there was a barrier built, a fence, it now is one of the safest cities in America. So I think there's lots of data points that the president can point to that would suggest that this would be successful policy for our state and for our country.
Another important part of this debate is chain migration. We saw this terrorist in New York City killing and injuring people on the bike path not long ago, got into this country and then brought others in as well. Kevin McCarthy, the House Majority Leader, was on Fox with my colleague Mike Emanuel last night. Here's what he said about that.
If we can fix chain migration, get the security along the border, I think we could come to common ground that everybody could agree upon and solve this problem, and I'm hopeful we can get that done this year.
Is it reasonable to expect that we're actually going to see progress, not just on a DACA wall deal, but finally doing something about chain migration as well?
You know, again, just like McCarthy was suggesting, I'm hopeful as well. It's been too long since we've had real reform. It's also, you know, we're looking all across America at Congress to get something done, and I think it's time that happens on immigration, and there's something for everyone in this type of deal as long as they're willing to come to the table and talk.
Mr. Attorney General, last question I want to ask you about. What do you make about various governors across the country, literally coast to coast, Democrats, Jerry Brown in California, Andrew Cuomo in New York, pardoning illegal immigrants, some with serious criminal records, convicted of felonies, all because they want to prevent the president from deporting these illegal immigrants?
Look, it makes literally no sense to me. We have the same thing. We've had the same thing in Texas with sanctuary cities. I don't understand why any government official would spend taxpayer resources to harbor illegals who we know have committed crimes. The upside for citizens of this country is absolutely nothing, and I don't think there's a good explanation as to why any government official would promote that policy.
Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of Texas, appreciate you joining us. Happy New Year, sir.
Happy New Year. Thank you very much.